TV News, expanding your view.
Thanks for staying with us on the show. You're watching Cool Digest, exclusive to Cool TV News, here live from Lagos. On this other side, we'll be discussing Boko Haram's declaration of caliphate in Gaza way back to the 1967 Biafra saga. We're joined now by GT Ogunye, a legal practitioner. Good morning, GT. Thank you for joining us today. Victor High is still here with us. Thank you very much for staying the course on the show. Let me start with you, GT. 57 years ago, thereabout, a certain people seceded from Nigeria. The issues were clear that our welfare and security can no longer be guaranteed under the Nigerian government. Much of our people are victimized, are sidelined, and, stigmatized. And then so we're going to declare a state. Do you see any relationship between that and the Boko Haram secession court, so to speak?
No, without hesitation, I declare that there is no relationship between the two situations. Following the program that took place in northern Nigeria against people of Igbo extraction mainly, prior to the declaration of secession and the counter-coup, as it were, in which many officers of Nigerian Igbo extractions were eliminated by the coupists, and the intention of the northern military officers to secede from Nigeria, because they were the first to so indicate when they declared HARAM, and Gowon was saying that there was no basis for them to continue any longer, before the British intervened and then say, you're out of your mind, you've got to remain in Nigeria, your access to the sea, and so on and so forth. The Biafran secessionists, and Lieutenant Colonel Ojukwu in particular, have good reasons, or pretext, if you factor in the ego between an Oxford-trained historian who later joined the military, and on the one hand, and Lieutenant Colonel Yakubu Gowon, on the other hand, factor that in. So the secessionists had good reasons or pretext to succeed. Now, on the other hand, you have this bloodletting called Boko Haram, an Islamic fundamentalist group that claims that it wants to reorder parts of Nigeria in their own mold, in their own thinking. And have been killing people indiscriminately, the young, the old. They've committed all sorts of atrocities known to mankind. They committed genocide weekly. They committed abduction of people. They've killed people. They've engaged in mass killings. There is no institution that has been too sacred for them to desecrate. They went to a university in the UK and killed university heads, professors. There's nothing they've not done. And so this declaration of an Islamic caliphate has nothing to do with the precedent of Biafra. Now, it is clear to me, and it should be clear to observers, that this declaration was foretold. They weren't engaging, there's logic to this madness. They weren't engaging in that bloodletting, killing spree for nothing. The ultimate intention is to balkanize the Nigerian state. In the first instance, carve out an area for themselves, gain a solid foothold, and establish a caliphate, as they've now indicated that they want to do, and thereafter start fighting neighboring states. If that division of Nigeria in the first instance is achieved, to the extent that even Nigeria as a whole would be a casualty at the end of the day, even if they didn't have the power and the means to achieve this at the outset. That's the ultimate intention. And so this declaration of a caliphate should have been foreseen And, they started this by periodically hoisting flag and retreating and all that. Now they've gained a solid foothold. And for me, it is, we had a wake-up call before. So I don't want to use that term as a wake-up call.
It's all right.
I would just say that at this point, if Nigeria fails to rally our resources together, and international clout, everything, that can be, rallied into it together to surmount this obstacle, it will fester. The territory being claimed by the caliphate, putative as that caliphate is now, will expand to other areas, and gradually they will be nibbling until they totally subvert the sovereignty and the territorial integrity of the Nigerian state. So the Nigerian government and people of Nigeria should sit up. You see, you won't but get a caliphate declaring a territory when you ask your soldiers to go to fight and they are raising moral questions.
We'll get there. We'll get there, GT.
Why do you want me to go and fight when I don't have equipment and you are not going to provide for me? Should I die in the war?
What comes to mind at this time, Victor, is the Islamic State militants in faraway Iraq. And you recall that in the July video, Shekau voiced support for the leader of those militants, and Abu Baghdadi, who in late June declared himself as caliph and the leader of Muslims worldwide. But the question on the minds of many Nigerians is, how exactly did we get to this point? Because for a while now, if not close to a year or more than a year, these three states are being under emergency rule. And the simple interpretation of that is that there is heavy presence of the military in this region. Is it that Nigerians are not really, clear? Possibly the situation of things on ground in Borno is not really clear to most Nigerians. How would you describe it?
Well, the sense of patriotism of Nigerians generally is low, sort of, and I'll explain what I mean by that. More often than not, we see ourselves as, not first as Nigerians, but you see yourself first as a Yoruba man, an Igbo man, a Hausa man, and then as a Muslim or as a Christian, or sometimes even as a Muslim first, and then a Hausa man, and then the other guy, he may be a Muslim, but he's not a Hausa person. And this has been allowed for far too long. Politicians have exploited it in their divide and rule. And obviously, the results are what we're seeing today. Now, this has been a long time in coming. It is at the root of what we're seeing today, because when this problem started, don't forget, then first it was against policemen, maybe after the death of Yusuf and all that. They started attacking, police stations and all that. Then, as always happens, churches and Christians are soft targets, ready targets. They began to hit them, and then when it was happening, leaders in the north just looked at it like some sort of cleansing. They never said anything. Even where they did, it was just paying mere lip service, It was more like, okay, good for them. These Igbo people, these Southerners, these Yoruba people and all that. And then, it happened in Kano, it was happening in Kaduna, church like Abuja, Georgia, bombing churches, mainly. And then that soon graduated from the churches. They started hitting moderate Muslims. And any Muslim who questioned what they were doing, Muslims who were liberal, who didn't think what they were doing was right, they started hitting them. And now, it's like a domesticated, a lion that was gotten when it was a cub was domesticated. It's safe until the day it tastes blood. And then you can be sure it will never remain the same again. And that's what has happened. In this particular case, Shekau and his group have tasted a bit of power, a bit of fame. I think they enjoy it when they see themselves on CNN, they see themselves on Al Jazeera, they buy newspapers and say, come, see, you know. And the aim of terror is really, of terrorists, is to strike fear and terror into the minds of their subjects. And so they have succeeded to a large extent, because now that you hear military people saying, oh, you know, it started from the governor of Borno, who said they are better armed. Yeah, he probably has more information than the rest of us, you know. And then the soldiers have confirmed it. And then the issue of, you know, people who, senior officers who will send soldiers out there and compromise them. You know, they will send them in two groups. The ones that want to die off, they send, and then those that are with them, they will just withdraw them, and then those ones will die off. And these ones are coming back with the few that will escape and survive will come back and tell the stories. So what has happened all this while is you find a situation where these things have been allowed for too long. The government didn't think it was serious initially. They took it like one of those things, it will soon fizzle out. But it has refused to go. And when they realized it was serious, it was already late, because like a virus, it had entered the system. The president himself confirmed that he had members of Boko Haram in his cabinet. And so it was a case where you had what you call frenemies. Now you don't know who to trust anymore. Now the greatest thing you can get in the military is that spirit of camaraderie, that trust of your colleagues. You can watch each other's back. The minute any military loses it, that's the end. And I'm afraid the Nigerian army has lost it. And that's the reason why you don't have one army anymore. And it's difficult to fight like that, because you don't know who to trust anymore. Even the soldiers right now don't even know who to trust anymore. And so, just coming back to what has happened now is, you find a situation where they have captured many territories, like you said, they tested them, put flags, and then now, the sad part of it is the symbolism. Where did they declare the caliphate? You know what Goza? I've heard about Goza a long time ago. Goza is where they train the mobile. I mean, this is supposed to be the foremost anti-terrorist group in this country, not even the army. Mobile police force. You understand what I'm saying? Goza is where they are trained, and they say it with every pride. Have you been to Goza? You can't go to Goza as a police officer and come back the same. It is assumed that the training you get there is an elite training. That's where the elite force of the police, Nigerian police, is trained. And now they've gone to that place, captured it, and declared it a caliphate. And I'm wondering what's happening to Sokoto right now. Now, I'm not saying this as a joke. On a serious note, I think the signal this passes through is, particularly for Muslims and the leadership of Muslims in this country, the emirs and the leaders in the north, who probably thought this was a battle against President Jonathan or against Southerners. They now realize they are being hunted now like rabbits. This man has tasted power, and I don't think he wants to share it with any of them. And this, for me, is a declaration of war. Perhaps it is good coming at a time like this, because now the Nigerian government will have to make a move it has been holding back from all this while. They have refrained from going in fully because of the Chibok girls. Okay? It is a war now, and unfortunately, all casualties, because that's what's going to happen in this case now.
It's all right, Chite. Before the Chibok girls, the Nigerian government has been fighting terrorism. What are those factors that you think are responsible for this massive failure? We heard about the police college that was ransacked. The IG could not confirm that as at the time we met with him. But then there are also global community support for Nigeria. We saw Ntwisu, who came in with some equipment. There are jets and all of that. Why have these things not worked in the northeastern region of Nigeria?
You know, we are analysts, publicists. And so whatever we say, we have to say it with responsibility. realizing that there are people who are in harm's way, so to speak, who are doing the fighting, who are facing very difficult challenges, who are being killed. I mean, senior officers in the military have been killed, colonel. So it's not just this incident that amounted to a declaration of war. That was started a long time ago.
Yes.
You know, the military has lost officers.
A lot.
Not
A
just
lot, unfortunately.
the you know, the non-commissioned officers in the military. But, you know, no matter how you're going to look at the reason why we failed thus far, you are going to come to a conclusion that we've had leadership failure. And I'm not going to personalize it. When this problem started, it was unfortunate. The Nigerian leadership did not describe this matter the way it ought to be described. They didn't characterize it the way it ought to be characterized. As a matter of fact, the Chief of Defense Staff once declared that it will soon pass that, you know, this, he described them as loonies. That was when suicide bombing was rife. That was the phase in the carnage. And he said that they will soon be tired. You know, those who are ready to kill themselves, they will soon run out of supply of those loonies, and everything will be all right. He says so while receiving the boat donated to us by the Americans here in Lagos, the Chief of Defense Staff. And I watched him on television that day, and I was looking at him. Is this man in Nigeria? Because what has happened over time is that we've seen an accentuation of this carnage. For the past 20, 30, 40 years, we've had the seed of this, either manifesting as a matricide or something like that, or, you know, this day related rioting, things like that, where people are killed. You know, intolerance, which has now graduated and metamorphosed into this open bloodletting. So, at the outset of this current phase of this crisis, the government mischaracterized it. And the first response, and this was popular, was to say the government of Goodluck Jonathan was being harassed by those who lost the election. That was why this was happening. As it is now turned out, these people, if they were to succeed, both the emirs and the caliphate you are talking about, they will regard them as the fake caliphate.
Yes, of course.
They want to, you know, they have their own world view.
Yes, if they set power,
they alone are the right people.
Yes.
Other people are wrong, whether you're Christians or you're moderate Muslims or whatever. Once you don't accept their ideology of hate, you are game.
Yes.
Okay? So they mischaracterized it, and we lost time. But by the time they woke up, as I said earlier, the thing had festered, and most unfortunately, morale, we'll say this, morale in the military has been low. What do I mean by this? People don't understand this. You know, the morale in the military is not about, you know, kitting the military, buying them the best boots or the best clothing or giving them equipment and all that. That morale has to be located in what happens in the polity. If you abuse the state the way the Nigerian state has been abused, if you steal money the way the Nigerian state has been stealing money, frittering away resources, those soldiers you want to send out to go and defend Nigeria and die for your country, they are also Nigerians. They listen, they hear. Okay? Even if you indoctrinate them, they know what is going on. And so it then becomes plausible to send soldiers to go and fight, and then for their spouses and their children to say they are blocking the barrack. Ordinarily, that's like aiding the enemy. In a war situation, it's death. Okay, but the morality then clashes with the possibility of enforcing military discipline. Because at that point, what is the military high command going to do? They will merely begging the question by then say, look, spouses shouldn't interfere, children shouldn't interfere. That's not what they should be saying, but because they do not have the moral courage to move on their soldiers and enforce discipline. Why? Because of the seriousness of the issue of what is going on in the politics impacting on what is going on in the military. I said this, and I've said this before. If you're a major and you're asked to lead a battalion, a major you doesn't lead a battalion, more than a brigade, you know, and you are asked to face the enemy with the possibility that you might die. If you don't understand that there's a pension thief somewhere, and that there is one important man, you know, called Minor, and he had not been brought to justice up to now. In fact, they said they cannot find him. And I'm just using this as a tip of it. I'm not going to go far. And all this goes on. And you say, damn it, you signed to die for country. They say, hey, so I signed to die for country. Those people, didn't they sign when they are sworn into office to do what is right by the country? Are they doing it right now? So what courage do you have to tell me to go and die? And the spouses and children are raising salient questions. Okay. When they go to war and die, what happens to us? The SSS and the police that died in Nasarawa, about 70, what has happened to them? When it was exactly 1 year, their spouses came out. We saw them on air crying and shouting and saying they needed help. So what has the Nigerian state done for them? And so when you look at all these, you see how it impacts on the capacity of the military to fight. So when you're again asking the question, why has it been possible for us to surmount this challenge? I'll tell you a combination of factors. But at the end of the day, in summation, it's leadership failure.
Let me take you back to 1967, the Biafran War. We didn't have civilian JTF. At that time, we had civilians who were forcefully drafted into the force, possibly because the military force was dwindling in its human resources and all of that. Do you see any relationship in this case? Because for the Nigerian military to talk about civilian JTF, I mean, what happens to the soldiers we have in the army?
Well, I wouldn't say the issue of civilian JTF is just, you know, the thing is, every community is like you have vigilant groups in estates and all that. Of course, there's the police force, which is there to protect you. But when you find that things are not happening, you are losing confidence in the state apparatus, then you have to take laws into your hands. Well, not take laws into your hands, you take your destiny into your hands by getting all the men to come out at night, take turns at protecting themselves. Now, that's the concept, the same concept with the JTF. You have the Joint Task Force of the military, which means a combination of different forces from the military, from different armed forces, you know, on special assignment in this particular area, you know, these ad hoc, you know, if you like, forces. Now, the civilian arm, because there's a need, they know who is who in the community. When a stranger comes, they can tell readily, okay? And sometimes they have to take their own destiny into their hands as well. So this is like an arm that is working hand in glove. And obviously, they're effective, which is why Boko Haram is attacking them, okay? And which is why the Boko Haram targets those of them that are really, really, you know, in the forefront, you know. So I'm not necessarily likening it. Oh, by the way, it was not, when you opened it, you say 57 years ago, 47 actually, I know it's a mistake, but just for the viewer. Now, I'm not going to liken it to necessarily what happened in the case of the Civil War. In that particular case, I mean, you know, it happened mainly in the southeast, where the soldiers were very few, and it was a war situation. The Nigerian army was fighting against, you know, just a few, you know, I mean, they only had their own share of soldiers, and that was not enough to prosecute the war. And so they had to get young people, men, able-bodied persons, conscript them to fight on their side. You know, so, but in this particular case, the people have to defend their community. Okay? To that extent, you can say it is similar. They have to defend their community. If the men sleep at night, they will come and they will kill them. And so you cannot wait for the military alone. Look at what happened in this particular case now in Goza. If they had a vigilant group, you know, ready as well, probably some scout would see them coming in from the distance, would alert other villagers, or maybe they did, and they would escape or fight back if they can. Well, I mean, but if they are coming better armed than you are, you're just, as they say, quote unquote, a bloody civilian. What can you do? Nothing. You just, and that's what's happening.
JT, with that, there are postulations. Some said the U.S. said Nigeria will divide by 2015. Earlier, we had a national conference where it was stated clearly that nothing about the dissolution or the division of Nigeria will be discussed. Now, how do you see Nigeria getting together, united, even in the face of this particular challenge?
You know, I don't want us to liken our situation to that of a patient who is facing a terminal illness and whose prognosis of the illness, the prognosis of the illness had been looked at, and the doctor had said that he had a short time to live, and I pronounced that in so period that patient will die. No, even if there's a prediction that Nigeria is going to disintegrate, the Nigerian state will collapse by, it's just a think tank thing. And this has been debated whether it was ever said or not. But assuming that it was even said in categorical terms, there's a way in which a country so doomed by forecast to fail can pull itself back from the precipice.
Yes.
And prevent an internal self-implosion. There is a way a country can do that. And we have that responsibility because we're talking about 170 million people, people that will suffer and all that. I'm not one to be fixated on the country being the pride of the black race, the biggest country population-wise in the world and all. Benin Republic is a country, so I'm not fixated on that. But I'm saying that we are the ones to determine what should happen to Nigeria. Not outsiders saying that, yes, you're going down anyway, and down you go. And then, when you are so warned, you then do nothing. You sit down like a lame dog, and then you picked. No. So what I think that we should do is to mobilize our own internal resources. And I say this very clearly. When the June 12 crisis started, the media hyped the intervention of the Americans, that Abacha would be dealt with, whatever, and all that. I think that the Americans intervened at some point. How Abiola died. That was an intervention. I haven't taken to how Abacha also died. That was an intervention, of some kind. But initially, people thought, in 1993, 1994, that there was going to be an intervention, an invasion, a deus ex machina, and the problem would be resolved.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay? That didn't happen. Okay? And so, I also saw that immediately the Chibok girls were taken, and the Americans came, and then the world was concerned, and British, and people also began to develop that dependency, thinking that their help will come from outside, that, well, there is no help from within. And a lot of people, the commentariat, in public domain, condemned the Nigerian government, the Nigerian military, that nothing could happen. These people should just come and save us. They're not going to come and save us. They can't even do it. This is not their country. Except government breaks down totally here. Except you no longer have a government. That's what happened in Mali. And they use that as a basis to then intervene. Because the Islamists took over in Mali completely. Okay? They routed towns and government and all that, and then they intervened to save the situation. And Nigeria sent some contingent to Mali at that point. Now, Nigeria is not in that situation. And then, to convince the international community that we still governing ourselves very well, there was a World Economic Forum that took place not too long ago in Abuja. And Abuja was saturated with security agents to give the impression that everything was okay. An atmosphere of normalcy pervaded Abuja. So if you've given the international community that kind of assurance, you're still saying that you are in control. So what they can then give you is expert support, technical support, and things like that. And now, each time you hear that we are sending planes, we are sending drones, is neither here nor there. So, and they've said they are not going to put boots on the ground to do the fight, meaning that they are not sending soldiers, combatants, to start fighting Boko Haram. So we are the ones that we ought to do. I think that what we need to do, and I've talked about this before, and I know that it's a delicate proposal, is to mobilize the local population and arm them to join in the fighting. The military is encamped in barracks and bases. That's what is still going on. They are not in the bush there as if they are fighting a conventional war yet. No. And so when they hear a report about an invasion, they leave their base and start moving. That's what you heard about military being, deployed from a Maimara barrack to start going, and then they were prevented by their spouses and children from going, right? So before they will get to that point of engagement, havoc will have been wreaked, villages will have been razed, terrorism will have struck a deadly blow, population will have fled into the bush, right? So if that is the situation, even when it is possible that when you armed civilians, those weapons might get into wrong hands and complicate the situation, you must look at the possibility of doing it in such a way that they can be the first responders themselves. Otherwise, we will be losing people and we'll be losing territory.
Let me just cut you short there. Investigations revealed that 200 AK-47 rifles belonging to the police were carted away by the Boko Haram insurgents who attacked the police academy in Goza last Wednesday. Would you agree with Barrister's position to arm the local population? If Boko Haram can cut away with 200 AK-47 rifles from the police academy, then they can do that easily with the local population.
Well, I am not quick to say arm the local population, or maybe we'll use the word arm loosely, because you know what happens, not just in this country, but in so many other places. Osama bin Laden was armed by the Americans, and afterwards he was not immobilized and he became a terror. You know what political thugs, it is said that even Boko Haram today are remnants of political thugs, and the arms that they were given. So I'm a bit hesitant to that extent. It's not as if I have a better answer or solution, with all due respect. You understand what I'm saying? And I understand where it's coming from. But you see, if we are sure that they can be supervised, and that in arming them, they will work under authority, and work closely, and then they do what they do, and at the end of the whole exercise, they're immobilized, and the arms taken back from them, then I'm all for it. But if it's just to arm them, then there will be, when they finish, the kind of governments we have, they will not find jobs for them afterwards. And the thing is, the analogy I used earlier on, like a domesticated lion, once you've tasted blood, once it has tasted blood, it can no longer be domesticated. It can't be tamed anymore. So
we've heard of close to *1 trillion naira budgeted for security, in 2014. Mr. President is also asking for approval to borrow $1 billion. Will money win this war?
Money doesn't carry arms, like you and I know. Money, people do, So money can only aid it. It will only buy those things that would help. Obviously, the budget, when was it passed? That's another thing. Once they get the money, then they have to look at, and things got worse right about the middle of the year. As new things arise and new ideas about, these people keep metamorphosing, changing, So, but from when the budget is approved, when money is released, when you agree on what you want to do, and when you place the order and for the arms to come in, these things take a little time. I think very shortly, the army is saying that they expect the silver bullet or magic bullet, I don't know what you call it now. They expect the silver bullet to land very soon. And that as soon as it lands, they have what it takes to exterminate, if I may use that language, the Boko Haram elements. Let's wait and see. I still have confidence in the military, and I respect them for what they do, and I believe that they mean well for this nation. And I think they deserve our support and prayers as well. So I'm hoping that if government is true to its words and these monies that have been allocated are truly released, the $1 billion, if it's for security, I don't see it as being too much. But I hope that this is properly deployed and that, because, you know, weapons have a way of instilling confidence as well. These soldiers are trained fighters. There's no one that has a superior equipment. Even these non-commissioned officers, give them a brand new rifle. I mean, the mere fact that they have it will make them want to go out there. You understand what I'm saying? So
Just a minute, we have a caller from Benin. Please
Okay.
turn down the volume of your TV. Hello, Ogbeifun. Good morning, Ogbeifun. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm calling you from Benin, Edo State. I guess it's a question I just want to ask because I'm shocked at what I'm hearing or seeing in your thing. That is it really true that what you read from the television this morning that 30-something people or police officers were kidnapped? Is that really true?
Well, we cannot confirm that except we hear from the security agencies. Those are still allegations, Ogbeifun.
Even you in the studio, you are not safe. And me working on the street, I'm not safe. So that's not my contribution. So I believe that this issue of deceiving us to intent of borrowing money, doing this and that is not our pocket. Let's not talk in God. And we all should make sure we have our weapons while we are working. Have your weapons. So if they attack you, anything you know you can do, you do it. That's just all. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ogbeifun from Benin. Wesley, thank you for
coming to
calling.
that.
Looks like you have someone supporting you on that part. But then, beyond that, some have also applauded the federal government and the people of Nigeria for not being divided along religious lines, religious and ethnic lines in this battle against
You know,
Boko Haram.
Nigeria could have been divided along that line, and Nigeria was being divided along that lines. But you know, Boko Haram united Nigerians
yes, the
by
bullets
their
don't discriminate.
indiscriminate killings.
Exactly.
I mean, they've
That's the
destroyed churches, they've destroyed mosques, they've killed sheikhs, they've killed emirs, they've killed, you know, they almost killed the emir of Kano a year before he died.
2 attempts, actually.
Okay? And it was coming from a Quranic recitation ceremony. So, by their indiscriminate bloodletting, they've united Nigerians. And I think that Nigerians are now able to see that these people are not the enemies of Christians alone. They are not the enemies of Muslims alone. They are the enemy of everything that is good.
Yeah.
They are human and they are bloodthirsty. And I think that having realized this, Nigerians are prepared, you know, to support the government to ensure that, you know, normalcy returns to Nigeria and that these people are vanquished. Without vanquishing them, without vanquishing them, there is no end to it. In fact, those who are saying that you can negotiate with them and pacify them and they will drop their weapons, they are grossly mistaken. They don't know the stuff Islamists are made of. They don't relent. They are sold on the idea that they want a society in their own mold. And they're fighting to die. That's the difference. Some of us just want to live, right? Yes. But these people are fighting to die. They've done all sorts of barbarities, using human beings as suicide bombers, using children, using women. There's nothing they've not done. There is no stunt in warfare.
Just
they've
a
not
minute.
sprung.
We have a caller from Jos. Hello, Mohammed.
Hello?
Good morning, Mohammed.
Good morning.
Please go ahead with your contribution.
Okay, I want to talk about this problem that they are am starting with saying that
I'm afraid we can hardly hear you. Please endeavor to, you don't have to listen to your TV set, okay? Just communicate with us on your mobile phone. We'll appreciate that so we can do without the feedback distortion. Thanks for your cooperation. Well, I don't want us to be pessimistic here, not being, without being pessimistic, but I want us to consider a possible infiltration of the Southwest. For instance, we've had about 2 suspected Boko Haram strikes in the Southwest. Of course, recently we saw a teenager that was caught with some explosive devices at an airport in Lagos. And of course, something I think around the Apapa area. Do you think that this will still remain, this unity will still remain, if this sect infiltrates to the Southwest?
I'm just afraid about the backlash. The problem may not even be from the elite, it may just be from the streets, ordinary people. We've heard threats by people in the Southeast who have said if such a thing should happen, that, you know, they will kill you, and this is not right. And I think it is time as well that the government started sensitizing people that
Please
we
hold
have a
your thoughts for
common
a while.
enemy.
Victor, please hold your thought. Hello? Good morning, Tony. Tony, are you there?
yeah, I'm here.
Please go ahead with the contribution.
Yeah, I want to make my contribution. There was a magazine, there was a newspaper report I read, Conscious Triumph, written in Kaduna. I think they write from Kaduna. They wrote, there was a Boko Haram convert that made so much confessions, giving the names of so many Nigerians that were their sponsors. Up to today, I don't know what has happened. The man said that he had tried to get to Aso Rock, but because the place is infiltrated with these people, he was not allowed to get in, and he's into hiding now. So I want to ask you a question. Why is government not coming up to pick up those men that were mentioned, very high-placed Nigerians, and we are shedding our hopes, we are just hiding things that were supposed to be exposed? Is it that they have broke the law of the country or what? That's the question I want to ask.
No, maybe we should ask the barrister that question.
Yeah,
There are a lot of
okay,
conspiracy stories, you know, as regards somebody, one highly placed Nigerian,
Good. I'll answer
Nigerians and
that
all of that.
question. If the president went on air to allege that there are Boko Haram elements in his administrations, so what has the president done about those Boko Haram elements? Domestically, before you start talking about, some prominent Nigerians somewhere. Okay? I'm familiar with a lot of acquisition and counter-acquisitions in the blogosphere. The political parties, the 2 main rivals, labeling themselves, accusing one party of Janjaweed mentality, of labeling them Islamic Brotherhood and all that, accusing, a shifting of the political party, until something like this happened. And of course, the NSA, National Security Advisor, came out to say that it wasn't the federal government that did it, meaning that it was Boko Haram that did it, right? So if it was Boko Haram, so what happened? Boko Haram had been factionalized, so there is now a Buhari faction. So you have all these conspiracies, and all that. But each time we hear this story, we have to hold government responsible. I'm tired of hearing there are some big sponsors somewhere. We're talking about our collective survival now. So if there are big sponsors somewhere, what is government doing about that?
Well, what is
So
the judiciary doing about that as well? Can't we call those people to give proof for certain statements
No, the
they're
judiciary
making?
does not work like that. The executive branch of government brings a case to the judiciary. The police is part of the executive. The SSS, the part of the executive, the military part of the executive. So they bring a case before the judiciary before the judiciary will intervene.
We have a caller from Meduguri.
But I
Hello,
want to add after that.
Aliyu. How are you today? Aliyu, are you there?
Good morning, how are you? How is work?
Terrific. Please go ahead with your contribution.
Yes, how is work? Hello?
I'm with you. Go ahead, please.
Okay. I am in Meduguri because of this please. I want to beg the government. I want to beg the government, please. Let them settle this about the Boko Haram. Let us saying army that tries that. Because of soldiers, they try that. But in terms of welfare, there is no any welfare straight there to do the work. And when the governor, sometimes they say, okay, when they fire a soldier, they will give a soldier 500,000. When they kill the soldier, they will give him a 1 million. But now, we see that find out that the officers used to collect the money without giving the soldier to go to the hospital to Maiduguri and kill soldiers. These soldiers are suffering from depression and there's no any welfare from their family. Some of them died with needing four families, 4 children, 5 children, without children. A lot of the battles that this is happening. Go and check and see what the West are suffering on. And the soldier will die, the parent will not know. Sometimes the wife will not know, maybe 3 months, 4 months, what is happening. So please, I'm begging you to help talk to those people that you are talking with them. So let them talk to the government, especially the president. Let him go there and see by himself and put some people that will take all these things and do this thing. The military are suffering.
It's all right. I think you made your point, Aliyu. What a very, very unfortunate scenario you painted there. You are going to react to.
Yes. I'll talk about that and maybe respond to you as well. With power comes responsibility. On mere accusations, I mean, just seeing a list, if you just get up and pick anybody, it can have collateral, it can cause collateral damage. I think that, of course, people can make any allegation. At some point, some people said, Buhari.
We're rounding up now. I want you to be brief with your comments.
So it's easy to call names, but without proof, you cannot just go and grab people anyhow. So I think what the government is doing, sometimes they need to measure. If you grab one person, what happens? There's some people you might just get. They might be innocent. They might truly be guilty. But if you cannot show proof that can convince everybody you grab them, you can be sure that, like what happened to Yusuf. Now, because of killing one Yusuf, extrajudicially or otherwise, look at what is happening today. So sometimes you have to find, you need wisdom, and I think that's what government needs, to be able to handle this thing. As for those who have declared the war openly, go after them. In the field there, whatever you do, all is well. Because right now, particularly with what has happened in Goza, they have declared war against the Nigerian state. And I think we should seriously go after them. Then finally, I just want to say something before it closes. What Aliyu has said has really, it touched me greatly. Corruption, like he rightly pointed out, is the reason why you have that low morale in the armed forces and all that. The officers are good, but not many of them are trustworthy. Even what is due to those people, they still shortchange them. They steal from the dead, they steal from the poor, in spite of all they have gotten. I think if a separate, we say that we're a country of commission and committees and all that, but I don't mind. If we have a separate commission that can look after the welfare of soldiers that die in battlefield, whom they will take, these widows and rest will go to them and let it not pass through the military high command at all. If people know that there's a separate body that will look after their interests, headed by men and women of integrity, I think it will instill more confidence.
Listen, let's have your final comments, but I personally would have thought that a panel of inquiry could have done to make people answerable to some of their comments.
That's, in closing, that's shaking responsibility. Yes. I'm appealing to the president to act as the commander-in-chief. It has responsibility and implications.
Okay.
And what I mean by this is that, look, if you say you want to set up a committee, what are you going to achieve? What the president ought to do is to enforce some discipline down the line, down the chain of command. In the past in this country, there are people who were fighting during the Civil War who misbehaved. Murita lost his troop and he was recalled. Adekunle was doing well in Port Harcourt, but people were complaining and he was removed. So in this situation, if the troops are complaining, their welfare is not being taken care of. So the president has to ensure, because they are the one doing the fighting on the ground, and ensure that their seniors, who may be accused of any, act of corruption, are removed so that the troops can then do the fighting.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for finding time to join us. GT Ogunweze, legal practitioner. Good to have you join us on Core Digest today.
Yeah,
And Victor Hai, public affairs analyst. Gentlemen, it's been a wonderful time with you. A big thank you to all of our callers from Maiduguri, Abuja, Jos, Benin. Thank you guys for contributing. You can also get to watch a repeat of this program late at night or on our YouTube channel. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. We'll take a break and I'll be back with the top of the hour news. Stay with us.
You can now watch Core TV News live from anywhere in the world on our website www.coretvnews.com. Click on Live TV on our website and watch us live.
And welcome to Core TV Primetime Days.
To follow us on Twitter, click on Twitter icon on our website. On Facebook, click on the Facebook and YouTube to see all our previous news production. You can also watch us live on YouTube. Click Core TV, leave a space, then News. Core TV News, a 24-hour news station.